Hello there, bestie, and welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast. I am your host, Kat. I will be your guide on this transformative journey. I'm a hypnotherapist and a mindset coach that is here to reconnect you to your most empowered and liberated self. This podcast is a space where we will explore the vast landscapes of mindset, career, business, cyclical living, energetics, spirituality, and beyond. I invite you to join me as we traverse these expansive topics, igniting the spark of liberation within you and setting the stage for an empowering evolution into your most authentic self. Without further ado, it's time to plunge into today's episode. Back to the Empower and Evolve podcast. Today, I'm joined by Amy Mingin, and we talk about the importance of looking after your health, especially as a female business owner. But let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy is a naturopath, a transformation coach, a hypnotherapist, speaker, yoga and meditation teacher, wife, and a mom of two. She has helped thousands of people find their inner spark and discover their version of perfect health for over 15 years. She brings the ultimate healing skill set to the table for every client so that they can access their own innate healing ability, creating transformation and long-lasting change. I've worked with Amy personally myself as a health mentor. We worked together in 2023. I started working with her in August, and we were working together until the end of October. And I hired her because I was recovering from adrenal fatigue. And through that adrenal fatigue, I had gained a lot of weight that was holding me back from really doing the things that I was loving to do. Like, I walk my dog up a hill every single day, and I was noticing that my body couldn't walk up that hill, and I found it extremely challenging. And I knew that it went way above and beyond like body image issues and like body positivity and acceptance. And it actually hindered me from living the life I wanted. So I knew that I wanted to release some of the weight and come back to my ultimate self and my health. So I worked with Amy for 3 months. And in those 3 months, I released 13 kgs, which is over 25 pounds. And I've kept it off. Like, I've actually kept it off, which I have found incredible. And I'm really excited for you to listen to this podcast episode and have some big realizations. Like, I remember having a lot of aha moments, a lot of mic drop moments and big realizations as we recorded this episode. So enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast. Today I have a really special guest, Amy Mingin, on with me. Amy is one of my past mentors, especially when it comes to health. And today we're going to talk about all things health and business and dive into the juicy details of her incredible program Catalyst. Yay. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kat. When you messaged me, I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to you on your podcast. And
So
here we are.
So good. So tell us a little bit about you, because some people who are going to listen to this podcast may not know you. They don't know all the magnificence that you bring, all the incredible gifts you have, your story. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you have landed where you are today.
Yeah, it's been such an evolution. So my name is Amy Mingin. I live on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. I love my life, and it's taken a bit to get to where I am. You know how people are like, oh, such and such was such an overnight success. Well, I can definitely say I have done the long road. Like, I will just say it right now. It's been a really long journey to get to where I am, and I've loved every bit of it for different reasons. And also, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I didn't always love it at the time.
Of course, of course. How long have you been in business for yourself, by the way?
So been in business for myself for 12 years, and I've been qualified for 16 plus, like just over 16 years.
Oh, wow. And
Makes
qualified
me
as
sound
what?
old.
I'm just going to play dumb because, I know, but
Yeah.
the others may not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've studied quite a few different things in my time. So first of all, before I was anything, I was an energetic massage healer. I would go
Mm.
through people's houses. I would take them through processes. I would take them through things energetically. But it was actually really quite cute when I think about it because I didn't really know, and I mean know as in like have any formal training in that particular thing. I just trusted my intuition. That's where I just started tuning into my intuition. I'd use crystals, I'd use aromatherapy. I was in the middle of my naturopathy degree. So I learned massage as part of naturopathy. And I
Cool.
was always hands on. Like I've always been quite tactile. I've always been able to feel people. And I started out doing all this energy work with people. And it was really cool to see somebody go from one thing and into another. But back then, like we're talking back in, when would it have been? Like 20 2006 to like
Wow.
2009, I would have been doing this. Yeah. So it's a long time ago, right?
Oh
So I
my
was quite
goodness.
young and I had no idea what energetic hygiene was. I had no idea how to protect my energy. I used to just carry a smoky quartz and hope for the best. That's what I used to
Did it work?
I think sometimes it would to an extent, but if somebody
Yeah.
had a lot of like energy that they require, like that big dense energy, and anyone who's done energy work would know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyone with that real dense energy, I would just take it on. I'm like, yep, I
Hmm.
can carry this. Yep, I can carry this. Yep, I can carry
Hmm.
this. And my nervous system was shot because I was trying to. So I was single at the time. I think that was my saving grace. I was single. I was living with housemates. I could spend a lot of time by myself if I needed to, and I could also hang out with people if I needed to. So I think that
Yeah.
was my saving grace back then. I didn't have to answer to anyone. I could do what I want when I wanted. Whereas these days, it's like I've got to be so specific about what I focus on and where my energy goes because I've got two kids, I've got a husband, I've got a household to run, I've got a business to run, I've got multiple aspects of my business happening every day, which we'll get to. But like it's
Hmm.
such a contrast, the life that I was living back then to what I'm living now.
Hmm.
And so I went through this and like I was at the time working in a health food store and massaging on the side. And I thought it was bee's knees. Oh, that's such an Aussie thing to say, isn't it?
I actually say that quite often. I have maybe I picked it up from you guys, but like I
You
love
probably
saying
did.
it. Like this is the bee's knees. Like, you're the bee's knees.
And anyway, people are probably just enjoying the Aussie accent anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the bee's knees is like the best. It's like gold. And I was like, cool. Well, I'm charging people more per hour for massage than I am working in my job. And I was happy with that. And
Mhm.
then I started feeling like all of this like heaviness after leaving some people's houses and being
Mm.
like, whoa. And I was in this over delivering. So I would book them for an hour and sometimes I'd be there in an hour and a half and I'd be like,
Right.
oh, that's okay. And they'd offer to pay more and I wouldn't take it. So it was like all of this
Mm.
thing would start to happen. And hey, I was in my 20s. This is how people learn.
Mhm.
So anyway, I got through that and then I started to like ease my way in. I qualified my degree in naturopathy, so I'm a full degree qualified health scientist, like actually.
Amazing. Like amazing.
In
But
which
what do
case we
you know?
learned,
The trolls on your Instagram.
right?
What
Yeah,
do you know?
it's so funny. It's actually so funny. So many great trolls out there. And I'm like, thanks for feeding my algo. It's great. So the naturopathy degree, I loved it. Like it totally took me by surprise because I signed up to it because here in Australia, we're very blessed to say like we get free, and I'll put free in inverted commas. We get
Mhm.
free, we can go study at university for free, but it gets put
Mm.
into what's called a HECS debt, which is a higher education something or other.
Okay.
And so the government holds like this kitty of money so that so kids can finish school and go to uni, or, even adults can go to uni and they don't have to pay up front. So we're very blessed for that in Australia, but we do have to pay it back in like at tax time. So chunks of it gets paid each year, just so that, anyone
I
who doesn't
didn't
know how
know
that happens
that.
in Australia. Yeah. So that's why so many of us get degrees because, it's more or less to a young person, it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some people
Huh.
end up with like 100 grand HECS debt. Like they've
Wow.
already pretty much got a deposit on a house owed to the government before they even get started in their life. So it's a lot. But anyways, I got through that degree and I absolutely loved it. It took me by surprise. I learned all these different things about how we can heal the body, how the body naturally wants to be in its own healing state, and the things that tend to be in the way of it. But what
Mm.
I noticed more and more once I was like, I got busy as a naturopath and I was working in women's health, and I was very blessed to have a mentor who is like a world-renowned women's health specialist.
Hmm.
And I would get so many great cases and so many women fell pregnant. Like so many things happened in
Mm.
those early years of being a naturopath. But also, I kept feeling like I was getting to a point and I just couldn't get past it. And it was
Right.
like so annoying to me. I'm like, I could see that you've never been well since you had glandular fever, but that glandular fever came after you had that massive stressful episode because this happened and this happened and this happened. So I could locate all these different things about root cause, but I didn't yet have the skill set to access what that was to release it in their unconscious mind. So I then went on the discovery of like, okay, I'd always loved yoga. Like I went through when I was 19. So this is even at the very beginning of my degree. I went
Hmm.
through a spiritual awakening,
Hmm.
and yoga was my key. It was my gateway. I've always said that
Mm.
yoga was my gateway, A, to learn about my nervous system, but B, to also learn about spirituality and
Hmm.
energetics. So I was relating everything through the lens of yoga, everything through the lens of meditation and the chakras. And I still do to an extent because it's like my original foundation.
Yeah.
And so I could do that, but then I still couldn't get through to root cause. And I'm like, well, I learned, went and did yoga teacher training, went and learned meditation. I'm like, okay, maybe this will do it. And it helps people relax, but it still didn't get to that underlying thing. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why can I not help these people to the extent of which I desire to? And then I knew that by learning what that actually was, I could actually do it for myself because I could see that I still had blocks. I could see that I wasn't fulfilling my full potential in what I was doing. I was still playing small. I was still like helping, but
Hmm.
not to the extent that I possibly could. So after yoga, and I created a whole yoga platform, and I thought that that was again the bee's knees, and it was at the time. That was so fast forward. That's like 2018. So that's like I was so grateful that I did that and put in all those hours in 2018 because with that yoga platform, which I've just sold, so that's the second business that I've sold, which is really cool. Um, the people that came through that all got such great results. They're like, oh my God, what style of yoga is this? And I'm like, it's just one that I actually developed based on my knowledge, based on what I know that people need, and it gives them some education and it's great. And I knew that something was coming in the digital age, like entrepreneurial
Uh-huh.
wise, but I didn't know that COVID was coming. So I had all my online stuff set up before COVID even happened,
That's so
which I was so
great.
grateful for. Like, good on my intuition for listening,
Hmm.
like in the pre, right? So then that happened and I promoted it more during COVID. But then I was like, I started doing the self discovery because I had more time all of a sudden. Everyone's in their houses, not that many people are interacting face to face anymore. So I looked into gene keys, I looked into human design. I was doing all the deep dives into that in 2020 and
Hmm.
2021. But then at the start of 2021, I met someone who taught me NLP.
Hmm.
And I just loved it. I was like, it was something that I didn't get to begin with. And then once I went through the process, then I got it.
Yeah.
I had to learn that I couldn't just intellectualize this. For the first
Yeah.
time in my life, I can't just intellectualize this. I have to trust and let my body feel it and process it because the unconscious mind is always trying to keep us safe. It's trying to keep us in the exact same position. And I was like, if I want to learn this NLP stuff, it's about the embodiment of it. So I was really working on the embodiment of, even though I found it was still so heady, it was like the
Hmm.
most mind stuff that I've ever done. But the
Hmm.
way I personally process things
Hmm.
is somatically, like in my body
Hmm.
and moving through things. So learned everything I possibly could in that year about NLP, started working in that room as one
Yeah.
of the leaders in that room, was also
Amazing.
teaching people, was coaching lots of people, absolutely hit peak of my coaching career
Hmm.
during 2022. And then I got to 2023 and I was like, hang on a minute, this is not my mission.
Right.
I'm on someone else's mission right now. And whilst it was lovely,
Yeah.
I'm here to do so much more in the world of health. I'd pretty much chopped off my left arm to go do purely coaching. And it was great. That's the thing. Like, I'm so grateful for every single part of this.
Uh-huh.
And it's all played a role so that I can get to
Uh-huh.
where I am now, right?
Yeah.
So I developed quantum healing alongside that NLP company, and they still use that training. And it's perfect. And I've got my own version now. So I've like let them have that, and I've got my own version. And what I realized is the more I step into health, the more I step into, like, I don't know if anyone listening knows of Rick Rubin, but he talks about playing your hand. So if you
Mm.
think about like you as the person, I'll bring a few concepts together here because this is
Mhm.
really, really cool. And it just really landed for me this year is like, we can play a hand. So let's say we've all got a deck of cards and some of them have been dealt to us to be the main character who plays those cards.
Mhm.
The people who are considered non-playing characters, they just hold on to their cards and they never really look at them.
Yeah.
And they just go on and let other people tell them what to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I'm not destined to be one of those people.
Mm-hmm. So neither am I.
Correct. And probably most of the people listening to this
Yeah.
are not NPCs either. So that's a non-playing character. If you're main character, you're looking at your hand of cards and you're like, here are my gifts and talents. Here are my levels of expertise. Here's my level of mastery. Here is who I am and what I'm here to do. I'm so embodied in health that it was a shadow aspect of me. Like I'd put it in the shadows. And when people would ask me things, I'd be like, but I'm a coach. But I'm a coach. And I would just like palm it off and palm it off and palm it off until I was like, I'm going to own all parts of me. I'm bringing
Yes.
all of this in holistically, which is what I love anyway. And I
Yeah.
naturally do. But I was keeping it all to myself. I was playing my own cards to myself. And I was like, I'm here to do bigger things than that.
Yeah.
So to play the health card, I started just bringing like smaller groups of women together to prove my concept.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Interesting.
I know what women want. Women want more energy. Women think that they need to lose weight. So I'll use that as part of the picture, but it's not the sole picture that I have in my mind for them. I know
Mhm.
that's what they want. So I'll let them know that they can have that.
Yeah, selling people what they think they need and then delivering them what they actually need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where the true liberation occurs. Because everything, if you're holding your card, on one side is the liberation side or the freedom side, and on the other side is the limitation side. So you want to be careful which side are you currently playing, because you
Mhm.
can always be playing the limitation, and people will fight for their limitations all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you're in story or reason, you're holding yourself back and you're using that reason to hold yourself back to your coach, to your partner, to whoever, like just notice it because
Yeah.
it's a human thing. Like I'm never going to say that you can overcome it, but you can be aware of it. And that is the whole point of being able to move forward with it, right? So playing the card of health. And I'm like, okay, what's more liberating about health? What's more liberating? How can I help more women be liberated? And I kept playing the liberation health card, kept playing it, kept playing it, kept playing it. And all these women are just like, this is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. Not only did I release 8 kilos, but I've also got a new partner. It's the first time I've ever felt sexy in my body. Some of them, it's the first time they've ever had an orgasm. Some of them, it's the first time they've
Wow.
ever got a client in their business. They're making more money than they ever have. They've all of a sudden got all this time because they're no longer thinking about food all the time. And I'm like, little did I realize how many control patterns women interweave and their emotional patterns interweave with food. Like everything in a woman's life, so many of them, the ones that I work with anyway,
Uh-huh.
it's all revolved around food. And you think about it, like someone will say, let's meet for breakfast, let's meet for
Yep.
lunch, let's meet for dinner. Well, what if we met for a walk?
Yep.
What if we met for a glass of sparkling water in the afternoon?
Yeah.
What if we did something else, played soccer together? Like whatever it is that you want to do, let's go for a
Mm-hmm.
hike.
I've never thought about it that way, but it's so true. And then the other thing, if you're spending a weekend with friends, it's always like, what are we gonna have for lunch? What are we gonna make for dinner? It's like this constant conversation of like, what's gonna be for food? And like I get
Absolutely.
it because there is something beautiful about, breaking bread and like sharing that kind of a moment with someone, but there's so much more. So I love that. I've never thought about it that way.
Yes. And I want you to think about like, because a lot of them are, let's say, resistant to some
Hmm.
of the structures that are in place in the plan when they first get it. And they'll
Hmm.
be like, well, can I have this? Well, how about if I do it this way? And how about if I do it this way? And it's kind of like being handed a skipping rope.
Yeah.
And instead of just doing it the most simple way and just skipping and jumping over the rope as you do it, and you've got your one single rope, it's like some people want to come in and like master the double dutch before they even know how to double dutch. And it's like, you don't need to make it complex. Like, just skip your own rope. It's all you need to do.
Oh, that's so true. I'm pretty sure because you and me worked together one-on-one on my health last year. And I was definitely one of those clients. But I think for me it was just like, and this is such a like silly excuse, but Canada's summer is really short and we only get like fruits like watermelon and plums and stuff for a short period of time. And when they weren't allowed in my plan, I was like, how am I meant to live like this? Like I only have a month where I can eat these things and now I can't. Like just remember having this little like inner child moment of like,
And it's funny, isn't it?
yeah.
And that's also what comes up. It's like, how were you fed food as a child? Because many
Mm,
of us, like, oh my goodness, both my grandmothers, my dad's mum and my mum's mum, we were more around my mum's mum, but they would bake for us. There would
mhm.
always be cookies. Yes, they were homemade, but they had a boatload of refined sugar in them. And they never told us we couldn't not have another one. My mum would be like, one and one only. And my nan would be like, yeah, sure, eat six. Yeah, have a can of Coke with it. Like, and we were
Yeah.
kids. Like, we did not know boundaries around sugar in the
Yeah.
90s. I'm just saying.
Oh, absolutely. I remember that myself. And I even like I had like little dates with my grandma and we'd go to McDonald's and that was like the thing. Like
Literally.
wild.
Yeah. And it's just like, so if you think about that, we think about the concept of love and connection. And if that's our memory of being around our grandmother, who is this
Mhm.
beautiful, like soft, and like my grandmother is so soft to hug. That was my favorite thing. Like to hug my grandmother was she was so soft and squishy. And to think about that feeling and attach food to it, you
Yeah.
think about that comfort factor.
Yeah.
Holy moly. And until you realize that that's where your emotional aspects come from with your food, you're gonna, like, that little kid inside of you is gonna be fighting for it tooth and nail.
Hmm.
But you're an adult.
Yeah.
So how do you actually overcome this? It's about awareness, number
Hmm.
one. But number two, it's about being able to get uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
that's why the food aspect of Catalyst is just so, so important. It is so important because it allows you to actually be yourself. It allows you to be who you truly are, as opposed to your 2-year-old or 5-year-old self running the show.
Yeah, right. And it does come back to like that discipline piece as well. And like thinking about like
Mm.
what's more important to you, right? Like thinking about the
Yeah.
long-term goals. Like, yeah, it might give you the satisfaction to eat this cookie right now, but is it going to get you closer to where you want to go and like help you where you want to go? And like I remember when I was working with you, for me, it was a lot about kind of coming back into my body because I was just recovering from adrenal fatigue and I'd gained
Mm.
a ton of weight that I just couldn't seem to shed on my own. And like it really came back to like I want to feel vibrant again. Like I want to be able to do things. Like I have this tiny little hill that I walk my dog every day and I was noticing that I couldn't walk up this freaking hill. Like it was just
Yep.
exhausting. And now like I find it so easy. I walk it every day and I like strut up it. So it it comes back to like what are your long-term goals? What do you truly want, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like it's important to add here because I know that you probably have a lot of beautiful spiritual people in your audience. And maybe someone's out there thinking, well, I eat healthy and I eat intuitively.
Mm,
And you saying like it depends on what your goals are. So what I notice is the patterns that come up with women in particular is they sit in what I consider like a no man's land. So there's this voice in the head that's like, gosh, it'd be nice to release like 5 kgs, which I don't, how many pounds is that? Is that like
I
8 or
actually
10?
personally work on kgs. Everyone in Canada works on pounds. I have
Yeah.
no idea. It's about double. So it would be, I think it's like 11. It would be about 11
Yeah.
because it's slightly more than double. But I've worked
Okay.
in kgs. It's still the European in me is never going to get rid of that, I think.
Perfect. Perfect. So let's say it's like 11 pounds or it's like 5 kgs. There's that little voice in the head that's like, oh, it'd be nice. But
Mhm.
then the 2-year-old's running the show. So, of course, have the cookie. Oh, I mean, I'm intuitively led. I'm just going to have an extra serve of the sweet potato, or I'm going to order the extra something or other on the side. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is, if you don't have the awareness around where it's coming from,
Mhm.
then you're not going to get to that less 5 kgs.
Mhm.
If you're just doing intuitive, then just do intuitive, but be okay with the fact that you're probably in a surplus and you're probably going to be at maintenance at the very least. So, for
Yeah.
example, whatever weight you are right now, whatever size clothing you wear right now, if you're eating intuitively, you'll probably stay that size.
Yeah.
And if you're happy with that, perfect. But
Yeah.
stop saying to yourself in your head that you want to release 5 kgs if you're unwilling to do the structure around being able
Yeah.
to release the 5 kgs, because you don't get there through intuitive eating.
Mm.
Intuitively, our bodies are wired for more.
Mhm.
I know for sure if I am eating intuitively, my protein portion is always way more than what I actually need because I
Yeah.
really love protein.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for me to overdo carbs because I enjoy them
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have a big appetite.
Yeah.
But I
Same.
know that if I eat to like 80% where I'm satisfied but not full, that's actually supportive if I want to be in a release phase.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, I'll also add this. If you can calm that voice down in the background that's trying to say the 5 kgs, instead of that, like what's the instead of? Instead of just love yourself for where you're at right now. Like really love
Mhm.
on that. Like put on the jeans.
Mm.
And if your butt's a bit fuller, be like, damn, I've got such a booty right now, you know?
One of my friend calls her booty the ghetto booty. I love it so much. I'm like, yes, I love me some ghetto booty.
Exactly. Exactly. With like the 90s no bum thing, at least I'm so glad that that trend's over.
Yeah, same.
Um, oh my gosh. So it's great that women have curves and it's more like accepted societally
Yeah,
now. I think the body positivity movement is awesome.
yeah.
What I'm saying here is be specific about what you're actually saying to yourself. So either be in maintenance or surplus and be happy with your curves,
Hmm.
and or if you want your curves to release, then go into a release phase, but don't overdo it. Like some women think that they have to be on a diet or release phase like
Yeah,
most of the year. It needs to be the opposite way
yeah.
around. If you do a release, maximum of 12 weeks of the year.
Interesting.
The reason why women yo-yo is because they go release and then they go way back into surplus, and then they go release and then they go way back into surplus. They forget that there's a maintenance amount.
Right.
And so that's what I teach. It's like you go release and then you go into phase two. So there's a phase one and a phase two of
Yeah.
catalyst.
Oh,
And
I
so
love
that's
that.
actually like a new metabolic set point. So if you release your 10 kgs or whatever it is during the program and you're like, cool, I'm happy with where I'm at. My weight has plateaued. I'm happy with the size that I am. I'm happy with my energetics. I'm happy with where my hormones are, blah, blah, blah. Right. Then you go
Mm-hmm.
into maintenance phase. So there's
Mm.
a larger portion size. There's larger flexibility
Mm.
in what you have. And I teach you the habits and the belief patterns of how to hold that maintenance as opposed to going way into surplus and binging sugar and, going all the way to the other end of the spectrum again, because that's
Yeah.
not fun for anyone.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that so much. When I was working with you, we were working together. I think was it 3 months in total?
Yeah.
And I released like 12 kgs during that time. So that would be like 25 pounds. It was insane. And a
Amazing.
little bit has come back, but it's kind of stayed pretty like in the maintenance. And I feel really great and it's really beautiful. Something that you've actually shared, if you're keen to go down a bit of a rabbit hole,
Go for it.
you talked about protein and how much you love protein.
Mhm.
And we talked about spirituality. And you
Mhm.
recently did a post where you said that spiritual people who are vegan may be actually shooting themselves in the feet. And like you're talking a lot about also how important protein is for women. And I actually want to share about my story, and then I'd love for you to kind of go into why protein and meat is so important for women.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you really focused on protein for me in my diet, and I've kept that. Like I eat protein basically with every single meal. It's a bit like a big portion of my meal. And I've always, like my whole life, had really bad iron numbers. And I actually literally yesterday went and did a blood test and I got my results back. And for the first time since I remember, my iron levels have gone up significantly. It's
This is so
huge.
great.
Yeah.
I love this.
Like so stoked because I've kept up that tradition of like protein is important. And I try to make sure like I eat either fish or red meat at least once a day. It's like one or the other. And then the other one is often chicken because it's just the most affordable and easy to kind of get. But yeah, it's been a game changer for me. So I'd love for you to kind of go down that rabbit hole. Why is
Yeah.
protein important and why might vegan spiritual people shoot themselves in the foot?
So there's so many different ways that I can speak into this, but let's first of all go, all right, well, why is protein important? Protein's the building blocks of all of our cells. So protein is a number of amino acids. So they're the singular thing. So you might have heard of things like, no, people won't have heard of that. I've just been told, no, they won't know that. So don't worry. Let's just call them amino acids. They're teeny tiny and they make up what's considered a protein, which is a macronutrient. So people who count their macros, they're counting proteins, fats, and carbs. And protein is a major part of our diet. Protein sends signals to our brain to say that we're full. So that's number one. Why would you ever want to just keep eating carbs forever? Because the only way that you know you're full from carbs is the stretch receptors in your stomach. That will set it off. Whereas hormonally, your protein will send amino acids straight through to the brain. It'll say, cool, we've had enough, switch off. So there's
Amazing.
something called leptin intolerance, which leads to insulin intolerance or insulin resistance, which is often part of the reason why so many people feel tired, part of the reason why people binge on sugar, part of the reason why people's hormones go out of whack, part of the reason why people get candida. So all of that stuff all goes together in the same sort of category on a different end of the spectrum. And protein is key to preventing all of that, but also key to treating it as well. So protein is helpful, yes, for our lean body mass. So if you're somebody who works out, even if you're walking, you still need protein. Even if you're sitting around during the day, interestingly, here's the studies. The people who are new to working out need the most protein out of everybody. They need about 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight.
Okay.
So
Wow.
then you can work that out as to where you're at. That's if you're new to working out. Those people who are overweight actually need about 1.8 per kilo of body weight.
Huh.
And the reason for this is it's supportive. So even though somebody who is overweight or obese has extra body mass, underneath that, if you think about it, like some people, okay, I'll put in perspective. I'm about 55 kilos and 1.60 meters. So I'm a small lady, but some people are my height and double my weight. I could
Mhm.
not imagine having to carry myself around all day long. These people actually have quite a lot of lean body mass, but it's underneath all of the fat tissue. So if you think
Mhm.
about it that way, of course, they're going to need more protein than the average person. But here's
Mhm.
the thing. Once they start eating more protein, they start naturally wanting for less sugar, naturally wanting for less refined stuff because they're already satisfied.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's actually one key to behavior change around food is increasing your protein.
Huh.
So next, if we talk about it so that's like in a physicality sense, in a physiology sense, it has been linked to helping with mental health because it helps to fuel our neurotransmitters. It has been helpful for our mitochondria, which is where we create energy inside of our bodies. And naturally, protein is one of the very helpful transporters of every single hormone and every single nutrient in our body. So if you are low in protein, it's very hard to have hormonal balance. A lot of women will end up with acne or period pain or weird periods or insert something to do with their cycle being irregular because their progesterone and their estrogen go all over the shop. Oh, I can see Bella.
Yeah. She came and joined us before I started recording with you, right?
So that's that part. That's physiology. And that's like what they've studied with science. Now, here's something that I want to say to the spiritual folk. Now, somebody came to my networking event the other day, and her and her partner were both there. And they said to me, you always say like meat's really important, but we're vegan because we want to like reach new heights during our breath work. We want to reach new heights in our spirituality. And I said, oh yeah. How connected are you to your body though? I said, because it's all well and good to raise to new heights. I'm all for it. I love it. I love the idea and the embodiment of raising human consciousness. Love it. However, what good is changing in the 5D if you don't have the 3D vessel to support it?
Yeah.
And that's what I said to them. And they both sat there and they thought about it for a second. They're like, yeah, you have a point. And I said, I went through periods of time being vegan, being vegetarian, and I was scattered.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I was scattered. So I was like feeling like I was spiritual, but I was scattered.
Mm-hmm.
This is me as the yoga teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't focus. And then as soon as I added more protein in, boom, I was so much more focused and so much more grounded in my body. And I was still spiritually extremely aware and still being able to do my breath work, still being able to do my Kundalini, everything like that. I can still access it. So I think partly it's being taught by someone somewhere and it's just being given like, okay, this is the gospel. I think that in the Hindu religion and the way that they do things, they're pretty much all vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
So that's normal for them.
Yeah.
But also, it's like as a culture, they don't really have that much access to protein.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go to India, there's not a lot of protein there. It's a very high carb diet. And I'll say now, like, whilst they're very spiritual and I love the Hindu culture, a lot of them have type 2 diabetes. A lot of them have metabolic syndrome. A lot of them have a lot of like that visceral fat which sits around the belly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that as well. So it's like you don't have to be one or the other. You can be both, and you can do this as an omnivore. You can raise your spirituality as an omnivore, but it will probably take you being okay with it and changing some of those belief patterns around what it means.
Yeah.
And I will say this because I love sharing this part. How I helped myself through it is because I had a thing around animals. I had a thing around like wanting to raise consciousness, all that sort of stuff. And what I said to myself is the meat is my medicine. And I'm so grateful that this animal was born into this lifetime in order to sacrifice itself, in order for me to be able to further myself. Like, what a beautiful gift it is to receive the energy from this animal. And as soon as I started being grateful for it, as soon as I started to see that reciprocation process, I was like, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not in my most medicinal self, if I'm not healthy, then I'm technically no different to the animal. If I'm sacrificing myself, my own health, to try and be more spiritual, how do I possibly do that if my vessel's struggling?
And I really love the example that you brought as well. I know you wrote it in your post as well. It's like, yeah, you may want to raise into the 5D, but you do have a physical meat suit that is in the 3D that you need to look after.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I used to be a vegetarian as well. And like that was around the time when I did my yoga teacher training. And like I got all the programming around it. And like, oh, a stomach is more similar to a cow stomach than a like carnivore stomach. Man, I like all the freaking things. And it served me for a while for sure. But it was also during the time when I then ended up having like the low iron and the fatigue and all the things. And eventually it didn't serve me anymore.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So
it's all a journey.
That's a big way of saying that's why protein's important. There's so many more things that I could say about it, but it's not just something that people who go to the gym need. Everybody needs protein.
Yeah. Yeah. And vegetable, like non-meat sources, just don't cut it the same way, hey?
Okay, let's be real here. The equivalent of 140 grams of beef. So it's a smallish steak. So it's
Hmm.
like a me-sized steak. Um, that's about 30 grams of protein. And that's like a decent amount for you to have in one meal. Or here in Australia, well, I do, we eat kangaroo.
Hmm.
And it's all sustainably, like they actually go out and find the kangaroos. They're all organic, like it's naturally an organic. So I like that idea. I love kangaroo more than chicken because, like, over here and probably where you guys are, like, chicken's just one of those things where it's like, it's just not that medicinal for me. I
Yeah.
don't know what they've eaten.
Yeah.
Like, that's just for me personally. I think in Australia as well, they are fed crappy grains. And
Yeah.
so when I eat chicken, I'm still technically eating the crappy grains that they were fed. So I just get this bloating. It's so not fun. Whereas I eat kangaroo and I'm like, so sharp, so for it, and feel so good with it. So same thing, about 140 grams of red meat, let's say red meat.
Hmm.
To get that from quinoa, you know how they like say quinoa is high protein.
Yeah, yeah.
You need 3.5 cups of it. That's a lot of
That is
quinoa.
a lot of quinoa. And let's be honest, quinoa is not actually that like great. Like you need to add a lot of things to make it like super yummy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it, like,
Absolutely. I usually like douse it in lots of olive oil and heaps
yeah,
of salt and paprika and cumin and coriander
exactly.
and, parsley and garlic. Like, so it's really about all that stuff that making
Exactly.
up.
Like you need to really spice it up.
And you have to chew it really well, or else you just end up with spotty
Mm,
poo.
yeah.
For real.
Yeah. So fascinating. So we were going to talk about business and Catalyst and how that comes together. So
Yes,
tell me. I want to know
absolutely.
all the things.
So technically we've talked about it in the spiritual aspect. So let's talk about it in the
Hmm.
business aspect. So
Hmm.
think about your human physical vessel as your vehicle to where you're headed.
Hmm.
Now, would you rather have something that's sporty and sexy and you're super proud of, that you look after, that's shiny and like people kind of do this when you walk past in the street and like do the double take? Or would you rather like the crappy like 1988 Barina? Oh, I don't know what's an old thing over in where you are, but like a Barina is like this crappy old little car. Like that was my first car. That's why I'm saying it.
I was just thinking, I don't even know, like none of the North Americans or even Australians will know this, but like a Lada, it's like an old Soviet Union car that was like made in Russia. Like those are like freaking
Oh
bad.
my gosh. Okay. So like let's get the picture of like an old crappy car that like occasionally might get put through the car wash once a year? Or do you want that one that's shiny and beautiful and seems sparkly and brand new?
Mhm.
And that's what our vessel, our human vessel is like, because it's constantly renewing. It constantly is creating new cells. Like with every single breath that you take, you're creating trillions of red blood cells. So everything that you do for your body matters. Now bring this into your business. Do you think that someone's going to notice if you are more of that shiny car or if you're the crappy car? Of
Absolutely.
course. Of course they will. Do you think that they're going to notice like I will liken this to like when I was first in business, I didn't know anything about branding. I didn't know anything about like the physical appearance and stuff like that. I knew my stuff and I could talk about it, but I didn't know that people would take me for face value. And it's not like I looked crap, but I also didn't dress up.
Yeah.
There's no way I ever even considered really brushing my hair, or like I would just put it
Mm,
up into a bun and,
yeah.
and just like get on with it and put a cardigan on. And it's like these days, it's like, okay, well, what am I appearing on today? What is the outfit that's going to fit the bill of the person who I'm stepping into today? Because guess what? In your business, you are stepping in as the human who is the driver of the business entity. Now, I want that to be the best level of human every single day that I can possibly
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So, what you are feeding, what you are drinking, what you are breathing, what
Mm-hmm.
you are doing to that physical body, it matters every single day.
Mm-hmm.
What you wear, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is going to trigger some people because they're like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, I can wear whatever I want. And yes, you can. But
Yeah.
is your highest version, if you were to tune into your highest version, are you currently in that right now?
Yeah.
And if not, what is one change you could do
Mm-hmm.
to step into that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, who's driving? Because
Yeah.
I'd probably put money on it's either your inner child or your inner teen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reading a book right now. Maybe you've heard about it, Pussy, a Reclamation by
Oh,
Mama
yeah.
Gina. So
Yes.
good. But in there, she also talks about the importance of adorning yourself daily and like dressing nicely. And this is
Yeah.
something I picked up probably a couple of years ago, but like really religiously, probably the last year where, I work from home. Sometimes the only reason why I leave the house is to walk my dog twice a day. And it's
Yeah.
like the only reason why I leave the house, but I get dressed nicely. I brush my hair. I put on a little bit of like BB cream, mascara. Like I do this for me to step into that version of me that supports myself and supports others. So it is like the small things, and then, eating well and drinking good water and making sure you drink enough water and not just coffee.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and I'll go as far to say, like, I get a lot of women who come into Catalyst who are in business who are spiritual. And this is
Hmm.
the thing, because the spiritual people tend to forget about the physicality because they're so good at what they do and they know how to feel good in the spiritual aspect. They're really good. And I would like, if you're just listening right now and you can't see this in the video, but like, imagine a triangle.
Hmm.
So I would say most people embody at least two sides, two aspects of the triangle at any one time. But the key is to embody all three. And if we were to say mind, body, and spirit,
Hmm.
so a lot of the people who come into Catalyst are the ones who have just been focused on their mind and their spirit. They're
Yeah.
really good mind, spirit, mind, spirit, mind, spirit. But the problem is the body starts to shout at them.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes these spiritual people will have so much excess weight on their body. They will have less energy. So if you have less energy, this goes to show like you've got less energy absorbing and giving capacity. You've got people who are stepping into their business and taking responsibility, great. But then how much further can you take that? Like, I
Because
think
it's
that
also
there's
the
so much.
capacity, right? Like if you're not in that physical self, and I'm actually having my mind blown because I've again never thought about it this way. But yeah, spiritual people, like they're so comfortable in the mind and the spirit, and the body gets forgotten. I'm like, oh, have I never thought about this? And it's so, so true. And if I start thinking about this, I can see it. I can
Yeah.
see it in the people around me.
And it's so common. And it's not until it's put in front of people and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. But again, until that becomes a priority in your life, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if people allow health to come up to their top
Hmm.
value, their behavior will start to change.
Hmm.
But if health is only like your 10th value and you're like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's important to me, and I'll just take some echinacea when I get sick, it's that important, then it's not going to be to the extent of where you can actually amplify your business.
Hmm.
So people will put health further down because they're like, oh, but I've got to make money. Oh, but I've got to do this, but I've got
Hmm.
to do that. Have you ever sacrificed something else in your life? Like it might be a connection with a friend or, that person who you're like, oh my gosh, I can't hang out with them anymore because that's taking up way too much of my time or they're too toxic or whatever the thing is. Well, have you ever turned that around and looked at yourself of the toxic activities and behaviors that you're doing with your health? Because that's going to affect your business far more than you realize.
Yeah. And I know personally, and I can like really look at it back over the last 7 years of me being in business. And, it's only really been the kind of last couple of years that it's been more like in the coaching realm. But before that, in network marketing, any time when I would really focus on my health and make that as a priority was when I was making the most amount of money.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yep. It's so
Absolutely. I
true.
agree. I agree. Because you think about it, it's energetic capacity. Money loves energy. Money loves a purpose. And so people who are in business, we're in business because we are here to make a profit. We're here to make money, right?
Yeah.
And even if somebody's like, the money's not important, well, then you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
Yeah.
So let that come up the priority list because it's actually important. The money will give you more choice. The
Yeah.
money can create legacy for yourself and for your people who come after you. It doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily mean you have kids, but people who you want to give to.
Hmm.
Like everyone has a natural gift and talent that they want to bring out to the world. But why would you hide behind poor health to stop yourself?
Hmm.
It seems like such a, like to me, it seems like such a huge block that a lot of people just like, oh, well, I might focus it at New Year, or I might start on
Yeah.
that after my like whatever birthday.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you actually know? There's no
Yeah.
guarantees that you're even going to make it that far.
Yeah.
Like, start today. Today's a
Yeah.
really good time to start getting healthier
Yeah.
because you can't just do one sit up and get a six pack.
No, absolutely not. And it's actually really interesting. I do find that there's a bit of like almost spiritual bypassing when it comes to focusing on health,
Mm.
because especially then when it comes to like, oh, we feed into the diet culture and blah 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 blah. And whilst I get that because I was brought up by a mom who was constantly yo-yo dieting, and through watching her go through all that, had like a bad body image and like didn't believe that I was worthy and like all the things. Like I picked that up.
Yeah.
So I know that it's a true thing. But at the same time, your health is important. Like, let's be honest, if you have extra weight and you're fat, you're not going to be as healthy as someone who's in their ideal weight and able to go and do things and look after themselves and be energized. Like, it's just not the same.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how I explain it to people is like, my health is my insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are like paying to insurance places. They're like, um, what is it, like income protection insurance, and they pay for their house insurance and they pay for their car insurance. Well, every single day with the mouthful of food that I take, with the water that I drink, I'm paying my own insurance. Like that weight that I lift, I'm paying my insurance. That run that I go on, I'm paying my insurance. And I pay it to myself because I know for sure if I needed to bolt down the street for whatever reason, like I needed to yesterday, I can put a sprint on and I can
Yeah.
sprint for a fairly decent amount of time
Yeah.
because I'm trained. If I had to get up and over a fence because I don't know, who knows, like maybe a dog was running after me or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, I'll just make up a scenario. I could jump a fence.
Yeah.
How many people, A, can't really run very fast or very hard, can't pull themselves up, can't like move very well? Like it is our insurance policy. It's really bloody important. It is so like it's so much further past like all of the, oh, you're telling me to eat a diet. No,
Yeah.
totally not.
Yeah.
This is way more important. This is actually life-changing stuff, which is
Yeah.
why I've called it Catalyst.
I love that. I love that. So for the listeners who are like, oh my God, like I'm having so many light bulb moments. I really need to focus on my health. This Catalyst program sounds really great. Tell us a little bit more about what Catalyst is all about.
All right. So Catalyst is me playing my hand. Catalyst comes from over 16 years experience as a naturopath, as an energy worker, as a healer, as someone who studied neuroscience, neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis. It works on all of those levels of mind, body, and spirit. So what makes Catalyst different is you get your own personalized plan. And the plan is based on what you let me know is happening for you, what your goals are. And it's based on more of an anti-inflammatory way of eating.
Mm.
So it's less about putting you on a diet and it's more about giving you the most medicinal foods so your body naturally goes into a healing pattern. So that's first and foremost. When the body goes into its most healing, like healing aspects, very easily you find your ideal body weight. So whilst I say to people, typically women will release 8 kilos in 8 weeks. That's the typical results. I had someone share with me yesterday that she's released 20 kgs in 4 months.
Wow.
And this is the smallest she's ever been in her adult life.
Wow.
She ran a 5K fun run. She's able to get down and get up with the kids on the floor She's got two little kids. Like, it's literally changed her life.
Wow.
So it's not just about the eating plan, it's about giving you healthy habits. It gives you a structure to follow. Because again, if you're just following your intuition, it might not lead you
Mhm.
towards having a structure to follow.
Yeah.
I find that intuition is great, and that can come more in phase two. If you want to
Hmm.
do the phase one and have some structure and support around it, you also get 6 months access to a Facebook group, which
Mm.
has 50 people in it. And
Oh,
in that,
amazing.
yeah, it's really cool. So there's 50 people in there, and they're always constantly asking questions. I have myself and a moderator in there. And Danny, she has been through the program. She's also a coach and she's also a naturopath. So it's
Cool.
really important that I feel that everyone gets not only their plan delivered to them, but the support available where you can ask questions. I usually do a video reply. So you get me
Mm.
speaking directly to you inside the group.
Cool.
And then also you have access to 3 different audios per day. Now, here is where the other magic happens. Like, I love it when people say things back to me that I know that I've put into the audio as a positive suggestion. So I do have a background in hypnosis as well. And they're really simple tracks to listen to. They wake up, they listen to a morning hypnosis. There's a morning walking mindfulness track. And
Mm.
then there's an evening sleep track. And listening to those 3 audios per day, it's maximum 30 minutes, but normally it's like 10 minutes on each.
Hmm.
And what that does is it helps to reprogram the subconscious mind. So where people used to go into yo-yo mode, when they listen to the audios, it helps them relax into the new way, the new habits, and stick to the plan. It just
I
helps
love
them trust the
that.
process.
I love that. It's almost like the insurance policy, working on the
Mhm.
mindset whilst you work on all the habits at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, because we're going into all those aspects, people aren't getting stuck on like the whole calorie model. They're not getting stuck on like all these different, like teeny tiny aspects that
Mhm.
it's not what the program's about. So, I know that a lot of people in the past, like this is a big reprogram on diet culture, on exercise, on so many things. Because a lot of people want to come in and they're like, so I'm doing like this HIIT training and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm
Yeah.
training for this. And I'm like, okay. So just to pre-warn you, the whole first month is very calming
Hmm.
because we need to reset everything.
Hmm.
And you watch all the control patterns come up then, which is perfect because then they become aware of it. So every single part of the program is super intentional. And I create it that way so that people can get the results that they really want. And it's not just that short term result, it's about having that long term result, like what you've had.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because I haven't gone through the program, but I'm sure it probably is a bit similar to what we did one on one.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
it was absolutely life-changing. And I really love everything it taught me. And even just the habits it instilled in me. Like I used to, before I started that program, I used to take my dog Bella, who, if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see her in the background. Like I used to take her for a 145-minute walk a day, and that would kind of be a thing. But then through the program that you put me through, I started to divide it into 2 30-minute walks. And it's a practice I do every day. In the
Yeah.
morning, after breakfast, we'll go for our walk. And in the evening, after dinner, we'll go for our second walk. And it's also just a really nice way for me to center in and be in nature. I personally find nature so healing. I like to bring all sorts of excuses why, but I'm a projector in human design. And I really find that that connection to nature just brings me back to that projector magic that is available within me. And if I don't have my nature time, I don't tap into it as much. So even
Yes.
like through that program, bringing that in and having that as a habit now that I've been doing for almost a year, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And the beautiful thing about walking is it's so underrated. Like people are
Mhm.
like, you're making me walk. And I'm like, yeah, you watch. You'll be a walker really, really soon. And one
Yeah.
by one, they're like, oh, sorry, my throat today. One by one, they're like, oh my gosh, I love my walk. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go for my walk every day. And just like you, it's just like it becomes that beautiful habit
Yeah.
rather than like just think about that in contrast to that culture of you have to go and sweat it out and work really hard and get your heart rate like super duper high. And it's like, says who?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly with the amount of women who are recovering from adrenal fatigue or
Mm-hmm.
recovering from having hormones that are out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
That is the worst possible thing that you could do is all that HIIT training and hardcore stuff. Like it does not make you lose weight. It makes you hold on to it because your body's in a stress state.
Yeah.
So the walking, particularly in nature, like it's such a perfect medicine for the body. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
until you allow yourself to like drop that old school mentality of how you have to do things. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually, hey, I can do this and be relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
The body naturally goes into its natural balance that way.
I love that. Would you ever say that, and this is just curiosity because I've heard people say this before, like, oh, if you've been on some kind of a diet plan or weight release plan and you hit a plateau, it's time to get like into weightlifting and do that in order to get your weight to move again.
My my question would be, it depends. A, how long they've been in a release phase, and B, uh, if it's due to the slowing of the metabolism or if that's their new set point, because
Yeah.
the body naturally wants to hold its set points.
Yeah.
Weights training I love because it can boost the metabolism through growing new muscle. So absolutely, I'm all for it. So long as it's got plenty of rest phases, so you're not going
Mm-hmm.
into like that hardcore like supersets where you do one thing here and then the next thing there and not give yourself any breaks in between the sets. So like giving yourself a good 2-3 minutes in between sets. Lifting
Mm.
heavier than what you think you can lift is also a really good
Mm.
idea. And yeah, not working out for as long as what you think you need to. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
huge fan of efficiency and smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases that will be helpful, but in other cases, sometimes they just literally need a period of going into maintenance,
Right.
which I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to because I want to
Yeah.
release more. And it's like we got to just actually work with where each person's metabolism is, particularly as we age as well. Like if this is
Mm-hmm.
a woman who's over 35, then
Mm-hmm.
absolutely she must be lifting weights because
Mm-hmm.
naturally it's hormonally driven that we lose about 1% of our lean body mass or our musculature per year after the age of 35. That's
Mm-hmm.
only if you're not lifting weights.
Wow.
So if you lift weights, you maintain it. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
it's really important if you're younger than that to
Yeah.
start lifting now.
Yeah.
And then you
And
can
would you
just
say that
the
like
maintenance happening.
would you say dumbbells and stuff like that is enough, or would you say it has to be
Yeah.
the gym, the
No,
big things?
dumbbells is fine. I think as long as you get dumbbells that are heavy enough as well,
Mhm.
though, because the body naturally will adapt. So if
Yeah.
you're only using 2.5 kilo dumbbells, then you need to like buy some big ones,
Yeah.
you know? Like for me, for example, for ages I was only ever using 5 kilo ones, and then I bought a new program in an app, and they were like lift heavy, and then they were like lift for as long as you can, where you hit failure on like your eighth one. And so here I am using 10 kilo dumbbells, which makes me look like I'm lifting so heavy because I'm a small bodied woman. But that's how strong I am now. I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
this is actually really cool. I can do like these Arnold presses with 10 kilo dumbbells. What the heck?
Amazing. Look at
So
you.
I know. So I think it's so long as you have heavy enough ones at home, and if you find yourself adapting, like just buy the heavier ones and
Mm-hmm.
like bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that. Wow, this has been incredible. I'm so excited for people to listen to this. So much gold in this episode. I always have one last question for anyone who's listening to this episode and really kind of like just like has their mind opened. What would be your one piece of advice to that person?
When you first get up in the morning, be really intentional with the thoughts that you're thinking.
Mm.
Because the thoughts, again, this is about you playing your hand. You can forget to pick up your cards first thing in the morning sometimes, and sometimes the thoughts will take you into life. So instead, pick up your cards first thing in the morning and be intentional about your very first thoughts of the day and watch how your life changes.
Oh, I love that. Mic drop. Thank you so much, Amy. This has been so incredible. You're amazing. Thank you for
Oh,
being
thanks,
you.
Kat. Oh, thanks for having me. I love this stuff, as you can tell, and I'm so here for it.
Yay. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for tuning into the Empower and Evolve podcast today, my dear bestie. If you found this episode inspiring and elevating, I would love for you to consider expressing your support by taking a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Help me extend the ripple of empowerment by sharing this podcast with those in your circle who may resonate with it. And if this episode has struck a chord within you, I extend a heartfelt invitation to share your experience on Instagram and make sure to tag me at It's Coach Kat, and let's spread the love together. Until we reunite in the next episode, may your journey be filled with empowerment, evolution, and the unwavering pursuit of your most authentic self. Now go and liberate yourself. And until next time, take care, my dear bestie.